Want to get the sunset in here. Can you see that?
What a day, huh?
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
All right. All right. So today we're going to be looking at the story of Abimelech, which is not a story I have to say that I was super familiar with before reading it this time. And I found it to be very, very interesting. I had not sort of realized. Hey, hello, Judy.
Hi, I'm here.
Good. On the phone, we have Ellen and David and Sylvia. They are all on their iPads or computers. And then we have Phyllis on the telephone and you on the telephone. So a nice intimate group today. So I was just saying we're going to read the story of Abimelech. So his name means my father, the king. And the commentary I have suggests that his name is actually more along the lines of my father is God, right? Melech in this case being God. Melech is the Hebrew word for king. Yes, right, which is very interesting if that's the case, because he is sort of the first. He's the first attempt to establish a king in Israel, as opposed to sort of relying on priestly and prophetic leadership of the nation. So the process that we see here, right, will be ultimately repeated in the book of Samuel and the book of Kings, right, where we end up in a situation where Israel ends up being reigned first by Saul. Oh, hello, Connie. Hello, Connie. First by Saul, and then ultimately by David. And just FYI, we are going to be discussing an article that was in the New Yorker about the idea of a historical King David. That will be next Monday evening. Phyllis, did you receive that article from me?
Yes, I did. Thanks.
Judy, if you're interested in it, I can put it in your box. Just let me know.
Oh, thank you. I'd like that.
Great. Okay, good. And Sylvia, would you like to read that article? Is that something you'd be interested in? Okay, great. And David, I think I got it to you.
Yes, I got it. I don't know what happened to it, but
okay. So I can get you another copy. Okay, I'm going to try to remember that. So I need it for Judy, for Sylvia, David, and then Ellen. Did you get that article, or would you?
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do 7 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to share now the screen. I will share the screen of Judges, the very end of Judges chapter 8, where the story begins, and we will go from there. All right. So we're going to go over here. Okay. We're going to go over here. One. Okay, we're almost there. All right, so we see that, okay. All right, so we're going to start at verse 30 on the screen. Okay, so we see that, oh, we lost somebody. We lost Judy. Huh.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Oh, good. Okay, great. So you'll see that Gideon Gideon is it was the former judge or leader, right? And the land had rest for 40 years, right? And so Yerubbaal is the same. That's also Gideon. He went and dwelt in his own house, and Gideon had 70 sons. So he had many wives, right? So a guy with a lot of wives, right, means that he's asserting his importance, right, by having a lot of wives. So he has a lot of kids, and this is a process that we'll see again with David and then with Solomon, right, where a lot of kids with a lot of different wives can lead to some amount of trouble. Okay. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age and was buried in the sepulcher of Joash, his father, in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel again went astray after the Baalim. Right? As soon, and we see this, this is the established pattern in Judges. Right? As soon as one of the leaders dies, the people go immediately back to their wily ways and start serving idols. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hand of all their enemies on every side. Neither showed they kindness to the house of Yerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had shown unto Israel. Right. So as soon as Gideon himself is gone, there's no more love for his sons, for his house. And so, which sets up the stage for the story of Abimelech. Okay, so we will turn now to chapter 9. Okay. All right, so Abimelech, right here we have one of the sons, the son of Yerubbaal. And remember that Yerubbaal is the same as Gideon. He has two names. Went to Shechem. Now, does anyone remember Shechem? There are several different stories related to Shechem. The most famous one is probably the rape of Dinah, right? And the subsequent destruction of the population of Shechem by Levi and Shimon. And then later on, there is in the book of Joshua, right? There is that's one of the places where Joshua writes the book of the law that will be sort of established as he puts it, a witness against the Israelites, which, in the context of the book of Judges, appears to be sort of a previewing of the fact that the Israelites are going to constantly be falling off the monotheistic wagon during the book of Judges. So Shechem is sort of, and Shechem also has, despite the fact that it seems to be constantly gets destroyed, it's an abiding presence in the Bible. All right. And it's important here, right, because his Abimelech's mother is from Shechem, right? And so he is going back to his home city. And we can sort of see here, right, just as we will see with Solomon, and to a lesser extent with David, right, that these marriages and these children can be seen as diplomacy, right? That Gideon took a wife from Shechem to sort of make a peace deal, perhaps, with them. All right. So speak, he says, I pray you, in the ears of all the men of Shechem, which is better for you, that all the sons of Yerubbaal, who are 70 persons, right, rule over you, right? Should there be a committee of 70 people that will rule over you, or that one rule over you? And remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. So he's basically saying, let me be the king of Shechem. And his mother's brethren spoke of him in the ears of all the men of Shechem in all these words, and their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, where they said, he is our brother. He's our kinsperson, so he should be our king, right? And very, very important here, right, that this is done by human persuasion, right? God is not present in this at all. Abimelech, despite his name, right, is not in any way the choice of God to be the king. Right? Yeah, David.
Wait a minute. Had oh, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting everybody's name. Had Gideon, had he said anything about what he wanted for an heir to his?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and we see, right, that there's a couple of things to say about that. I think first of all, we will see subsequently in the story of Saul and then with David, right, is that there with Saul there's some assumption that his heir would be Jonathan, but Jonathan himself seems to understand that Saul's heir would be David, and uh, so there's already sort of an undermining of the notion, right, that there would be that primogeniture, that the king's son would actually become the king. As with, and then David, there's a question. It's never entirely clear, or I mean, maybe it's clearer than I think it is, but it's never entirely clear to me who actually is the oldest son of David. Is it actually Absalom, or is it someone else? But there's never any indication that there is a custom, right, of making the oldest son the king. Because, excuse me one second, my son is here. What's up, Ty? Excuse me one second, guys. I'll be right back to you. Here? Oh, here. Sorry. All right, my apologies. So there's no indication, right, that that there would be hold on one second. Okay. There's no indication that there would actually be the first son being the king after the king's death. And we actually, right, that what ends up happening is that David explicitly chooses Solomon to be the king. There is no indication of Gideon showing any having any sort of a choice, nor has there been any sort of any, as far as I remember, any indication that once you're a leader that your family remains the leader, right? It seems to be that this pattern is very important, right? That there is someone's a leader and makes everybody in Israel behave for a certain amount of time, and then when that leader goes, chaos breaks out again, and then another leader needs to arise with God's spirit. So I think the short answer to your question, David, is no. I apologize for the long-winded answer. All right. So to continue here with our story, right? And they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal Berit, wherewith Abimelech hired vain and light fellows who followed him. So that let's see here. Here it says worthless and reckless fellows. And he went off into his father's house in Ophrah and slew his brethren, the sons of Jerubbaal, being 10 years, upon one stone. Right? There's just one stone. And somehow he murdered all of these people with a single stone, which somehow seems symbolic, but I'm not sure of what, right? Except for Yotam. Right? Yotam, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. So again, we have this, what seems to be a regular feature of biblical narrative, right? Where the youngest one becomes the continuing link, right? And all the men of Shechem assembled themselves together, and all of Beit Milo, and went and made Abimelech king by the terebinth of the pillar that was in Shechem. And when they told it to Yotham, he went and stood at the top of Mount Gerizim, and lifted up his voice and cried and said unto them, Hearken unto me, ye men of Shechem, that God may hearken unto you. So here we see, first of all, just to point out that if the guy goes up onto the top of a mountain, it's unlikely that everyone will actually hear him. So probably this is a, sort of an apocryphal kind of way of talking about how he spoke to everybody. But he's going to tell a parable, right? He's going to use a parable, and then he's going to explain the parable. So let's see what the parable is. And remember, this is the one son of Gideon who remained alive. Right? The trees went forth on a time to anoint a king over them. And they said unto the olive tree, Reign thou over us. But the olive tree said unto them, Should I leave my fatness, seeing that by me they honor God and man, and go hold sway over the trees? The olive tree doesn't want the job. And the trees said to the fig tree, Come thou and reign over us. But the fig tree said unto them, Should I leave my sweetness and my good fruitage and go hold sway over the trees? So he didn't want the job either. Right? And the trees said unto the vine, Come thou and reign over us, meaning like the grape, right? The grapevine. And the vine said unto them, Should I leave my wine, which cheereth God and man, and go to hold sway over the tree? Right. So we see here a kind of a folk story structure. With 3 refusals, right? And these are all useful plants. They're not all trees, right? Yeah, go ahead, Connie.
And they're all very, very productive of Israel today.
Right. These
olives and figs and wine.
These are sort of the
all for export.
Right. Exactly. And so they're sort of symbols of Israel. They're useful and productive, right? Trees. They're the kind of trees you can sort of imagine. They're not oak trees, right? Which you kind of imagine maybe very kingly, but it sort of gives the idea of what is a king for, right? The king is to be, we want a king who's going to be useful and productive, right? So then they set all the trees to the bramble, right? What is a bramble? Well, in this other translation I have,
thorn brush.
What do you say?
A thorn brush.
A thorn bush, yeah, a thorn bush, right? And come thou and reign over us, right? So they've definitely sort of gone down a few pegs, right? Moving from these great, wonderfully productive plants to the thorn bush, right? That doesn't produce anything but thorns, right? And what does the thorn bush or the bramble say? And the bramble said unto the trees, If in truth ye anoint me king over you, then come and take refuge in my shadow, right? And if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. Very interesting, right? What does that mean, right? So this commentary says that when we talk about the shade, right, it's an ironic description, right? That a thorn bush doesn't offer any shade. So essentially, if you make me king, right, now that you've made this offer, right, if you make me king, I have nothing to offer you, right, in the way of shade. But if you try to take the kingship away from me, right, I will turn myself into fire, right, and devour you, right, so that that he can offer them almost nothing except for destruction. Very interesting, right? That he basically says, right, that if you now offering me this kingship, right, you've sort of sealed your doom, right? And the kind of behavior we've seen from the outgoing president, right? This sort of burning it down as I go out, kind of behavior seems to be something that the Thornbush knew a long time ago. All right, so now Yotam is going to explain this thing in the current context. And I guess the question I would ask you as I'm reading this is, to what degree does the current situation actually resemble the parable that he gives? Okay, so now, therefore, if ye have dealt truly and uprightly, in that ye have made Abimelech king, and if ye have dealt well with Yerubbaal in his house, and have done unto him according to the deserving of his hands, for my father fought for you, and adventured his life, and delivered you out of the hand of Midian. And ye are risen up against my father's house this day, and have slain his sons, 70 persons upon one stone, and have made Abimelech, the son of his maidservant, king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother. If ye then have dealt truly and uprightly with Yerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice ye in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour the men of Shechem and Beit Milo, and let fire come out from the men of Shechem and from Beit Milo and devour Abimelech. And Yotam ran away and fled and went to Be'er, right? The word for this is the word for spring, right? And dwelt there for fear of Abimelech, his brother. Okay, so what do you think of this of Yotam's parable and his application of it to his current situation?
I don't understand it.
Okay. I'm not sure I entirely get it either. But one thing that I picked up from this commentary that I read, right, is that no one asked Abimelech to be king, right? It's not as though it's not as though the Shechemites had gone out looking for a king the way that the trees did, right? The trees want a king, and they find various candidates, all of whom refuse them, right?
Right,
and they sort of settle on the thorn bush, who offers them essentially nothing but destruction. In that context, right? This is a very different story than what happens with Abimelech, right? Because Abimelech goes to the Shechemites and says, "Let me be king." Right? He manufactures this whole idea about being king. So that seems to me to be a pretty significant difference. But I think what he is saying here, right, is that if you all acted properly, right? If you were dealing justly, right? If the decision to kill all of Gideon's sons, right, was a just act, then you will have, then you can rejoice in Abimelech, and he will rejoice in you, right? Which I think is equivalent to the idea of he's not going to offer you anything, right? Sort of like the thorn bush was not going to offer you anything, but you can, take what you can get from him.
But this is
But that
parable.
Go ahead, Phyllis.
This parable is told by Yotam, right?
Yes, by Yotam.
So, but he runs away for fear of Abimelech, his brother.
Yes.
He told this parable that is against.
It's against Abimelech.
It's saying this is what it would be if Abimelech
Yeah.
is king.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it's saying ultimately, right? I think he his opinion, right, is that Shechem, by giving Abimelech, by agreeing to Abimelech to be the king, right, to be their king, and giving him the means to murder all of Yotam's brothers, right? He is basically prophesizing in a way, right, that that decision will ultimately lead to the destruction both of Shechem and of Abimelech himself, right? That nothing will come out of them of this situation except for the fire, right? The fire of the thorn bush, which will burn down everything around. So
Thank you.
so it's a kind of a it's kind of a it's predicting doom basically, for the group, for this group of people. Right? If Yotam runs away, we'll see if anything happens to Yotam. I don't remember off the top of my head what happened. All right, so to continue, and Abimelech was prince over Israel for 3 years. So he didn't last very long. Right? And very interesting, right, that they say, right, that he was prince by Yasar. So the word sar, right, is something along like minister or high government official, right? This translation has held sway, right? Held sway, right? Uh, so they don't actually call him king, right? But they do indicate that he was sort of in charge for 3 years, which is a very short time for a king to be, right? And God sent, and so here God makes an appearance, right? And God sent an evil spirit, right? A ruach ra'ah, a negative, a negative. Let's see. So here, a ruach ra'ah, an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech. Right. So already we see that Yotam's prophecy is coming true. Right. They are going to rebel against Abimelech in some ways, and this will lead to fire and brimstone. That the violence done to the 70 sons of Yerubbaal might come, and that their blood might be laid upon Abimelech their brother, who slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, who strengthened his hands to slay their brother. And the men of Shechem set liars in wait for him on the tops of mountain, and they robbed all that came along that way by them. And it was told to Abimelech. So it's a little bit confusing, right? Again, this is a little bit confusing, but the basic idea appears to be that God wants to affect the outcome that Yotam prophesied, and thus makes the men of Shechem sort of turn into brigands, right, and rob people as they're traveling along. And this is for some reason bad for Abimelech, right? And then so we have, and Gaal, the son of Ebed. Hold on one second. Okay, and Gaal, the son of Ebed, came with his brethren and went on to Shechem, and the men of Shechem put their trust in him. Right? So the place that was sort of the basis for Abimelech's strength politically was Shechem, but now there's this other guy, Gaal, son of Ebed. It's not really clear who that is. So it's a little bit confusing. Let me see if I can remember. Right, so it's very difficult who Gaal actually was. Apparently, it says he was the head of the brigade, the head of a brigade. He was a military guy, right? That's the best my commentary here can do. right? And so they went out into the field and gathered their vineyards and trod the grapes and held festival and went into the house of their God and did eat and drink and cursed Abimelech. Right? And Gaal, the son of Ebed, said, "Who is Abimelech and who is Shechem that we should serve him? Is he not the son of Yerubbaal and Zebul his officer? Serve ye the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem. But why should we serve him? And would that this people were under my hand. Then would I remove Abimelech." And he said to Abimelech, "Increase thy army and come out." And when Zebul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gaal, the son of Ebed, his anger was kindled. So I find this to be very, very confusing. Who's who here and who's on whose side? It seems very confused, and it almost seems like again sort of a kind of product of the ruach ra'ah, right? The evil spirit, right? Making this big confusion of everybody against everybody. So Gaal sent messengers unto Abimelech in Tormah, right? I'm not exactly sure where Tormah is. Let's see if we can figure that out. So saying this is Zebul, right? Zebul, who's the ruler, he is loyal to Abimelech, right? Saying, "Behold, Gaal, the son of Ebed, and his brethren are come to Shechem, and behold, they will incite the city against thee. Now therefore up by night, thou and the people that are with thee, and lie in wait in the field. And it shall be that in the morning, as soon as the sun is up, thou shalt rise early and set upon the city, and behold, when he and the people that are with him come out against thee, then mayest thou do to them as thou shalt be able." And Abimelech rose up and all the people. So against basically what we have here, right, is a civil war, right? We have a war among the loyalists to Abimelech and loyalists to Gaal, who seems to be sort of a usurper, right? So we have all of the kind of it's sort of a concentrated story of David or Saul, right? Without either the amazing characterizations and the nor do we have the sort of space to sort of understand what's actually happening. Go ahead, David.
I've been so confused about who or what exactly is Shem.
Yeah.
Because at first I thought it was a place
Yes.
or people, or then it would look like it was a person. But I don't know which it is.
Yeah, Shechem is a place, but remember that almost all places, not all places, but a lot of places have the designation of the person who founded them.
Uh-huh.
So originally Shechem was a person. So in the book of Genesis, right, Shechem as a town or a settlement is led by Shechem the man, who makes a kind of a connection with Jacob, right? And after his son makes a connection with Dinah, which is traditionally known as the rape of Dinah. It's not clear that it's actually a rape, right? He agrees to be circumcised along with all the men of his settlement, thus becoming Israelites, right? But Simeon and Shimon and Levi are really upset about how the whole thing went down, and so they end up killing all of the Shechemites. But Shechem as a place continues to pop up in the Bible again and again. And so here, what we seem to have, right, is within Shechem a kind of a civil disturbance, right, where we have one group that's against Abimelech, but we have another group led by Zebul who are loyal to Abimelech as the king. But the conflict doesn't appear to be across all of Israel. It seems to be limited to Shechem. All right, so he rose up and all the people that were with him by night, and they lay in wait against Shechem in 4 companies. And Gaal, the son of Ebed, went out and stood in the entrance of the city, at the gate of the city. And Abimelech rose up and the people that were with them from the ambush. Right? And when Gaal saw the people, he said to Zebul, behold, there come people down from the tops of the mountains. And Zebul said unto him, thou seest the shadow of the mountains as if they were men. And Gaal spoke up again. And Gaal spoke up again and said, see, there come people down by the middle of the land, and one company cometh by the way of Elon Meomenim, right, which is the terebinth of the sorcerers. Not exactly sure what that means. Right? When then said Zebul unto him, where is now thy mouth, that thou saidest, who is Abimelech, that we should serve him? Is not this the people that thou hast despised? Go out now, I pray, and fight with them. So, and Gaal went out before the men of Shechem and fought with Abimelech. And Abimelech chased him, and he fled before him, and there fell many wounded, even unto the entrance of the gate. And Abimelech dwelt at Ramah, and Zebul drove out Gaal and his brethren, that they should not dwell in Shechem. So the outcome of this first sort of battle of this sort of civil war, right, is Abimelech is able to maintain his sway within Shechem. What's going on outside of Shechem does not seem to be any kind of interest in this story right now. And it came to pass, sorry about that. It came to pass on the morrow, right, the next day, that the people went out into the field, and it was told to Abimelech. And he took the people and divided them into 3 companies and lay in wait in the field. And he looked, and behold, the people were coming forth out of the city. And he rose up against them and smote them. Now, it's not clear, right, if these people coming out of Shechem were coming out to fight him, or if they were just coming out into the field to do other things. It's not clear. Let me see if this... right, there's no...
It says here that he took the army out.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it says in Sunsino?
No, this is JPS.
Okay. Yeah. What it says here, right, is that there is no explicit justification for the second battle and the harsh means taken by Abimelech against the Shechemites. Right. It is, and this commentator says it's directly connected to the depiction of Abimelech in the parallel, right? That he is the fire that's going to consume everything. Right? If you go with this kind of a king, right, everyone is going to be destroyed. Right? You'll end up with nothing. Right? And then what does he do? Right? So, and Abimelech fought against the city all that day, and he took the city and slew the people that were therein, and he beat down the city and sowed it with salt. So he fills it with salt, right, which means that there will be no more city, right? He spoils all of the usable ground, right? All the usable soil is destroyed. So which is very, very intense, not least of all, right, because Zebul, who was leading the city, right, was explicitly in favor of Abimelech.
Yeah.
So Abimelech ends up destroying not only the people who were opposed to him, right, but all the people who were on his side indiscriminately. All right, and then there's a third stage of the battle, right? And when all the men of the tower of Shechem heard thereof, they entered into the hold of the house of El Berit. All right. So here it's not really clear what tower of Shechem is. In Hebrew, it's Migdal Shechem. And so it could just be that this is another place with the place name Migdal Shechem, right? Because presumably had there been a tower, it would have been destroyed along with everything else in Shechem. So this is another place where the text is a little bit confusing. It's not really entirely clear what's going on here, right? And then they go to this other place, right? It's not entirely clear what that is. El Berit, right? The God of the covenant, it would be called. The house of the God of the covenant, right? And it was told to Abimelech that all the men of the tower of Shechem were gathered together, and Abimelech got him up to Mount, he and all the people that were with him. And Abimelech took an axe in his hand and cut down a bough from the trees and took it up and laid it on his shoulder. And he said unto the people that were with him, what ye have seen me do, make haste and do as I have done. And all the people likewise cut down every man his bough and followed Abimelech and put them to the hold and set the hold on fire upon them, so that all the men of the tower of Shechem died also, about 1,000 men and women. So
Real ethnic cleansing.
right. I mean, and just again, sort of like, and even more clearly echoing that the parable of Yotam, right, that uses the imagery of fire, right? Now,
Right.
no longer kind of the metaphoric fire of war, right, but the literal fire, right, of burning down a wooden tower that was being used as a haven for these people. So we see that Abimelech is a bloodthirsty tyrant. All right, and then finally, in Thebes. Now they say that this is this word Thebes is a corruption of the name Tirzah, which is 12 kilometers northeast of Shechem. So they think that it's an actual place that you could conceivably find on a map. So then Abimelech went to Thebes and encamped against Thebes and took it. So he seems to have this, very strong military capacity. He's very, very effective as a warrior. But there was a strong tower within the city, and thither fled all the men and the women, even all they of the city, and shut themselves in and got them up to the roof of the tower. Now, this does not appear to be a very good strategy, right? Based on the last episode, right, where everyone did the same thing and Abimelech just set fire to the place and that was it, right? But in this case, right, and this is where we know that Abimelech is really not a favored person in the Bible, right? Because both Saul and David do all kinds of terrible atrocities in war, and Solomon too. But they're seen they're not seen as wholly negative, right? Here is how we know that that Abimelech is seen as a completely negative character, right? Because a certain woman, right, Vatishlach isha achat, one woman cast, right, threw an upper millstone upon Abimelech's head and broke his skull. Right? This is the worst fate imaginable for a warrior, right, to be killed by a woman. Right? We saw this already, right, we already saw this in the story of Devorah, right, that Yael is the one who kills Sisera, right, and thus depriving Barak of the honor of killing the enemy, right? So Barak doesn't get the credit, right? Yael gets the credit, and here again, right, the person who ends up killing the tyrant, right, is not one of his enemies, or not one of his male enemies, but this woman who had the gumption to pick up and the strength. I mean, a millstone is not a light thing to pick up, so she must have been a very powerful woman, right? She picks up the millstone and drops it on his head, and that's the end of it, right? And he called hastily unto the young man his armor carrier, and said unto him, draw thy sword and kill me, that men say not of me a woman slew him. And his young man, go ahead, Phyllis.
Nothing. I just, that was my only comment. Ha.
Yes. And don't, God forbid, someone say of me, right? A woman slew him, and his young men thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, Right? They departed every man unto his place. Right? As soon as he was dead, everyone sort of realized, what are we doing here, killing each other? Right? It's enough already. And thus did God requite the wickedness of Abimelech, which he did unto his father, in slaying his 70 brethren, and all the wickedness of the men of Shechem did God requite upon their heads, and upon them came the curse of Yotam, the son of Yerubbaal. All right, so and there does seem to be a certain kind of poetic justice, right? That Abimelech is killed by a stone, right? By a single stone, right? The way, as opposed to being, maybe stoned as a murderer might be stoned by a lot of different rocks, right? He's killed by one stone, the way that he did his mass murder of his brothers on a single stone.
Right.
I'm assuming that there must be some literary kind of echoing going on here. All right, so we've come to the end of the story, and the next chapter I'll just read the first part, the first couple of lines of it. And after Abimelech, there arose to save Israel Tola, the son of Puah, son of Dodo, a man of Issachar, and he dwelt in Shamir, in the hill country of Ephraim. And he judged Israel 23 years and died and was buried in Shamir. And after him, so on and so forth. So we'll pick up the story again. Probably not next week. I think next week is the week of Hanukkah. So we will do a Hanukkah related class next week. But we'll pick up in 2 weeks with the continuation of the story of.
Are you going to light Hanukkah candles?
Yeah. So you'll get our thing for next week, but starting on Thursday, or maybe next week we will do Judges, and then we'll do the Hanukkah teaching during actual Hanukkah. We'll be doing Hanukkah candle lighting every night on Zoom at 4:45 every evening at 4:45, and there'll be several other Hanukkah type of programs going on.
4:45?
Yeah, 4:45. Yep.
Hanukkah candles on Zoom?
Yep. And you'll see that in the bulletin. Yeah. Connie, go ahead.
I have to first apologize because I'm not always on this. My internet is very unstable. I'm in and out. But two things, TBZ is going to be doing Hanukkah lighting outside.
Yes, at 5:30.
And secondly, I think about Cecil B. DeMille doing this motion picture with a cast of thousands.
Oh, you mean you're talking about Abimelech?
Yes, I went from candle lighting to Abimelech.
I think that this story of Abimelech would make a very compelling kind of a movie, right? It would be very does seem very cinematic, right?
Yes. Lots of extras.
Lots of extras, exactly. Lots of extras.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I think it would be maybe not Cecil B. DeMille, given how bloody it is, but maybe Sam Peckinpah should be the one who makes it.
Yeah.
So we're doing Judges next week?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Hold on 1 second, Ellen. Say it again, Connie.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I missed what you said. Connie? Connie, I missed what you said.
Oh, I just said thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So before we close, I
just said thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. Any final comments about Abimelech and Shechem? We can certainly argue about who should direct the film version and who should play Abimelech. I'm thinking Gibson. Mel Gibson would be a very good Abimelech. Very bloodthirsty and very upset to be killed by a woman. But we can do the casting next week.
It seems that nobody comes off very well in this story.
No one does. And I think that that's actually, Phyllis, a very important point, right? And it might be one of the reasons why we don't really hear about these characters that much in later years, right? This is not a story that I was that familiar with. Not that I'm, I certainly am not familiar with every story in the Bible, but it's interesting. Very often, I will have at least heard of these characters. But it's very interesting how negative a portrayal of pretty much everyone this is, right? And even the heroine of the story, right, the woman who kills Abimelech and allows everyone to sort of come back to their senses, she doesn't even get a name, right?
Right.
Um,
And she doesn't even finish the job.
right, because the text is so concerned, and it's very interesting to think about why, right? Why is the text so concerned to show that Abimelech is so vain, right? That that even in posterity, the main thing he wants to be remembered as is that a man killed him, not a woman. Like it's, but obviously the text makes it clear that it was the woman who did the job, that the armor bearer was just
A tyrant is a tyrant.
yes,
A tyrant.
he's a tyrant, right? And he's pathetic.
And Rabbi, Shechem, so what's Shechem today? It's on the West Bank, right? But it's not known as Shechem, right?
That is a good question. That is a very good question. And it says here, right?
They talk about it like in general.
Good night.
Bye, Ellen.
So we're doing Judges next week in
Yeah,
Hanukkah
right.
2 weeks.
I believe that's right. We'll be doing this.
What chapter for next week?
Right. So Shechem is mentioned again and again in the Bible. It's mentioned later in Kings, in the book of Kings. And so, the question really is, is it the same place every time, right? Or is it just a place that is often associated with stories where everyone gets killed? Because that seems to be like the real connection, for me at least, of between this story and the story in Genesis, right? It's a town that is it's a town where due to a sort of a series of sort of civic mistakes, shall we say, right? In the case of Jacob, right, that there's an abduction of his daughter, right? There's no indication that Dinah was opposed to it, right? But there was this sort of abduction of his daughter, and that led to the destruction of the city, right? And here there is sort of an unwise alliance with Abimelech, right, who turns out to be a destructive force, and again the city is destroyed. But it does show up in Joshua, in the book of Joshua, in a different context, and I'm not familiar with the context in which it shows up in Kings. So, but it is an interesting question, why this is Shechem. And the other question I think is worth asking, right, is how does this relate to the rest of Israel, right? This seems like a very, very localized story, right? And, it's really a story about a very small area in Israel. And there's no indication that Abimelech really has any, even though it says that he held sway in Israel for 3 years, there's no indication of what his role was outside of this very localized area. And so the hypothesis that this commentary that I'm using suggests is that it is essentially an anti-monarchical story, right? It's all about the dangers of naming a king. Right? Avoid having a king, because if you end up having a king, right, it'll be like the thorn bush, and it will lead to the destruction not only of the king himself, but of all of his subjects as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you know, the role of fire, you don't think of fire in the desert, except, of course, the burning bush.
Right, right, right. And also, right, that this, this, and there's also and it's interesting, right, that there's also an echo with Saul, right, because Saul is also mortally wounded by the Philistine arrows, right, but wants his
Mhm.
armor bearer to kill him, so that the Philistines won't capture him alive and torture him, right? In that case,
Yeah.
the armor bearer refuses to do it, so Saul has to take care of himself, and falls on his sword.
Oh, gosh.
But it's
The Bible has everything, doesn't it?
it really does. It really does. If you ever thought, right, that horrific violence was something that we dreamed up in the 20th century. I mean, I think the 20th century was an accelerant, but it certainly was not. It certainly your generation and my
I
generation were
mean,
not the origin of violence.
the story talks about burning bodies.
Yes, yes, yes. It's horribly resonant, and yeah. So, and I do think, right, that it's a significant warning against malign political influence, and thus
Yeah.
relevant to our current situation. Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Lila Tove.
Bye,